Welcome back to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. I am your host, Jill Wright. If you are new here, welcome to the pod family. It's really exciting to have you here, especially today when I get to share about a topic that we haven't talked about on the pod before, and that is manifesting money. I have a really great guest here to share with us the ins and outs about manifesting money and specifically why it might not actually be happening for you, even though you're doing, quote, all the things, right? We kind of have this idea of what it should look like, what the steps are, but Kaycee really takes us through the inner work, the mindset work, and the trust that happens. So Kaycee Mullaney wasn't always great at manifesting money. In fact, she used to really be excellent at saying, I can't afford it. She, like many of us, had a pattern of spending and hoarding and then spending again. And she kind of always just felt like money was slipping through her fingers. Deep down, she knew all the time that she was meant to be wealthy. She just didn't know how to get there. And so she spent a lot of time and energy and money trying to figure it out. Haven't we all, right? And in the meantime, of course, same with everybody, money was stressing her out, ruining her sleep, all the things. So here's what actually changed for her. She stopped chasing the money and she started understanding how it actually works. And this was back in 2015. She began following her intuitive guidance and she realized that wealth wasn't built by cutting lattes, pinching pennies, or working insane hours. Instead, she learned how to shift her energy, align her mindset, and attract money in ways that felt effortless. And so now she leads women all over the world to true financial empowerment. Her clients on the regular manifest the money and the lives that they truly want. And a really big part of their success is spending time in Kaycee's world, whether live or through trainings inside her membership, the Wealth Collective, or listening to her on a podcast like this. So I'm so thrilled to have her here. You're going to absolutely love our conversation. And if you're into the woo, like we are, I want to also bring you back to an episode that I did with one of my very favorite energy healers, Michelle Larson. And we were talking about intuition as well as balancing our energy for ourselves and our kids. So the through line here is that we need to lean in and trust that sort of inner voice and trust the energy of money, trust the energy of what is happening in our worlds with our kiddos and ourselves. This whole world, as you know, is something that I'm deeply, deeply diving into this world of spirituality and woo and energy, all the things. So highly recommend going back and listening to my episode with Michelle. It was last summer. You'll see it. I'll link it in the show notes as well. But to give you some backstory, Michelle is an intuitive energy healer, a medium, cosmic oracle, holistic practitioner, and she specifically works with parents and with spiritually gifted kids. So with her episode with me, she really felt strongly about guiding moms into this deeper understanding of our own spiritual paths and how to manage this energy that happens all the time, whether we like it or not. So highly recommend you go back, check that one out. I had a great conversation with Michelle. My conversation with Kaycee is just as wonderful, and she gives such practical tools, amazing stories, great examples. It's a super fun conversation. I can't wait for you to hear it. I'm going to stop yammering now and let you listen to Kaycee dish up the good stuff. Kaycee, I'm so happy to have you here today on the pod. Thank you so much for coming on to join us.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be so fun.
It is going to be fun, and you are a wealth of knowledge. I can't wait to pick your brain. The audience already knows who you are, but can you give us a bit of background into like what specifically drew your interest to this area of work?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been very spiritual since I was a kid. I think that's one of the first things to know about me. When they told me that God was all around the age of 2, I took it very literally and was like, oh, okay, and started a conversation that really hasn't stopped. So by the time I kind of learned, I was raised in a mixed religion household. So there was also a component of like faith instead of just religion. And I think that has benefited me greatly. On top of the fact, by the time in some teachings that I learned like by the age of 9, that taught like not to connect with God directly, it was too much of a ingrained piece of me. I remember even saying like, God, it's gonna make me tear up. I was like, God, I'm sorry if I've been bothering you, like, but at the same time, it was such a big connecting piece for me. Oh, I didn't mean to get emotional. It was such a big connecting piece for me that it still stayed. And it's been such a core piece of just who I am. Like I always am having this conversation. It's helped me, that faith has helped me through so much, but it also helped me believe in miracles even easier. It helped me believe that there was a divine connection within us even easier. Like I always believed, I remember when I first learned about astrology as a young kid, like 7 or 8, I was like, well, of course there's a way for God to connect with us. Why would we not have means of communication, you know? And even though there were times I would receive like direct communication, it made such beautiful sense to me that we'd have so many different avenues of receiving guidance in our lives. And that was all, like I said, before the age of 10. So that was kind of my spiritual foundation. So money for me, which I think you probably mentioned a little bit already, money for me was an interesting thing. So when I was a baby, basically, I still like, had this wealth vibe about me. Like I was loved like beautiful things. I was into like diamonds and I was into big mansions and like all the things long before I recognized that there was a difference in like price value. I remember picking things out of my grandmother's Vogues and just falling in love with them, having no idea that the cost of that wasn't any different than what you could get at Walmart. Like I just knew that I loved it, you know? And so I always had this kind of wealth vibe. But I definitely grew up in a household where can't afford it was reused so frequently that it became such an ingrained part of my language that I didn't even realize it until two almost embarrassing instances in college. And at that point I was like, oh wow, this is really in my brain, you know, and it's not what I really meant, but it was the words that were coming out of my mouth. And I find that a lot of us have this. A lot of us have this background of, you know, either our parents had struggle, especially like, and I know you're in Canada, but in America especially, like we dominantly come from immigrants. We dominantly come from people like, I know in my background there's, you know, Revolutionary War um soldiers, I guess, army, like whatever they're called at that time, I guess soldiers. So, I mean, you're fighting for your space in this world. And we come from this background of really having to fight. This is where even people who became super successful and super wealthy will still have this almost scarcity vibe. And it's because they did like a lot of these companies, huge companies originally started with like somebody that came from nothing, that was creating something to create this wealth. And when that's still within your background, it's very easy to be in the scarcity mode instead of in a, of course, the money is always flowing my way, you know? And so basically, so in my 20s, I was still obviously into all the wealth vibe things. And but I had a lot of interesting history with money. I had gone from, you know, overly hoarding money, playing around other people's expectations, to recognizing that the career I had in that moment wasn't the career I wanted, to like way overly investing and spending because I was just so desperate to figure out my place in the world. I knew that I wasn't like doing what I was called to do, but I couldn't figure it out, and I desperately wanted out of this career that wasn't serving me at that time. And so I did all this frantic spending, and then on top of that, I would go like way back and forth, and I would notice these things with debt where I would pay something off and then suddenly there'd be an expense, and I would be so grateful that there was room on the credit card, you know, and that was available to me. And basically in my personal development and business development process, because I also have a background as a dietitian and a certified personal stylist. One of my original businesses was actually me helping women lose weight, doing spiritual life coaching hidden in the middle, and then styling them after. And so when I was doing like a business course for this, one of her intro things was this money mindset work. And even though I was familiar with manifestation at that time, I was not familiar with money mindset work. And so this was in 2015. And so I dove in, and all of a sudden, so many things made sense. It just totally made sense why I was keeping myself in a certain cycle, why I was, you know, why like of course like money would flow in and then flow out. Like suddenly just things started clicking. Well, that wasn't my last, you know, education on that. In fact, the amount of money and manifestation work, I forget all the time. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I read that book, or I did that course, or I learned from this person." Like the amount that I've done in the last decade at this this point is just crazy, not to mention my own channeling and things like that. But it all started from that initial piece. And then I had instances where I realized what I was being taught wasn't necessarily working for me. And so I started diving even deeper. Like I started looking in, one, I started receiving. I always say you receive things when you're ready for them. My clients literally say they manifest me, and I fully believe that too. When they're ready for me, I tend to appear. So they tend to manifest me. And it was the same with the things that I needed when I was ready for them. I tended to manifest things as I was ready for them, or things that intuitively flowed in for me to understand or know. Well, I was learning from all these different people, and certain things were connecting. And one, I noticed that it was easy for me to manifest money in ways that I didn't love. I was doing contract work as a clinical dietitian in long-term care and rehab, which I am excellent at. I've trained many people how to do it well, but it's not my passion. It's not my joy. But I kept manifesting. I would get in this mode to manifest money, and I'd have loads and loads of contract work, loads of money coming in that way. But then I would be like burnt out or done with it or trying to manifest differently, and it wasn't working. And I couldn't figure out why. And so again, I would dive in deeper and look at things deeper. And what actually ended up happening was after the 10th time I heard one person explain something the exact same way, I'm like, okay, God, I understand this. And I use the word God. I tell people use whatever word works for you, whatever is that loving expression. But I'm like, okay, God, I'm like, I understand this on a logical level, but I've heard at least a dozen people ask her the same question. It's obviously not clicking for them either. And she's explaining it in the same way, which means there's a disconnect. Please help me understand the disconnect. Help me understand this. Help me embody this. And so then I started recognizing and learning new layers. Like some of it I channeled through certain things would be like something would pop on a screen. I'd be like, oh my gosh, wait, this connects with this, or like somehow I would divinely receive the information because I asked. And basically one of the things that I started recognizing was within me, I had different levels of money stuff, to say it lightly. Like I actually I so one the first person that I learned from actually came from a fairly wealthy family. She didn't grow up with the can't afford it. She also came from a family that was loving and accepting of who she was, and she was able to take chances and be very openly herself. It's not that I don't have a loving family, like, that is definitely not the case, like, I have an amazing family, but I have a strong people-pleasing background and a nervous system where I remember the first time my dad showed disappointment in my brother and I was 3, and I never wanted to feel that feeling again. On top of that, just, communication stuff, like, in families and lack of communication sometimes. Like again, as a kid, if I felt disappointment from anybody or I recognized what I said wasn't exactly what they were hoping to hear, it really hit me really hard. So I was actually incredibly introvert. I'm still introverted. It shocks people. I've learned how to be, outgoing. I taught myself that at 14, but basically, like I was very hidden in who I was. And in my nervous system, it did not feel safe to me to be a full expression of myself. On top of the fact, deep rooted struggle for generations really echoes through. On top of that, the things that I fell in love with, um, it's just a value difference. I teach on this all the time, but like there were definitely comments made that things that I wanted were sinful, So when you're playing with all these levels of crap, on top of which I was also taught that going into debt was the worst thing ever. And because I was set up for success, having a lot of scholarship and my parents like paid like the difference for my room and board and stuff like that. I was basically, it was basically told to me that this was setting me up for success and to basically never go into debt. So I had all this other psychological shit underneath as well of like shame, deep, deep, deep shame and deep amount of me really punishing myself because again, that was another way that I knew how to make myself perform. And so when you have all these things mixed together, suddenly it's like, oh, well, of course we're not receiving the way we want to. We're not working on the self-love bits enough. Like it's not that I really teach people. I didn't realize I was totally cut off from feeling love. I could feel I could feel right before I married my ex-husband at my bachelorette party was when I recognized how disconnected I was from the feelings of love. I could feel love that I had for other people, strong love for other people, but when I was standing here witnessing this room of women going above and beyond for like the best celebration of me that I had ever seen, I couldn't feel a thing. And I'd done enough development at that point. I've been doing personal development since I was like, 13 or something, like finding little quizzes on the internet and things like that. I'd been doing enough development at that point to go, oh, this is interesting. We definitely need to work on this. So I had to work on my self-love. I had to work on releasing judgment. I had to work on recognizing that there is a combo of your divine soul path and also you getting to still receive better in the now. There's so many of these little intricate things that I play with. And one of the things that's amazing to me now that I fully understand this, fully embody this with clients, it's so easy for me to see it. People actually within conversations, people will meet me, have a 5-minute conversation with me, and I could probably tell them everything they need to fix and like how to do it and all the plays and all the games because I've been looking at this for so long. And I always ask for guidance as well, but like I've been doing it for so long, I can always see the missing links. I can see the things where people are struggling or where it's like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense. And it's all because we all have different backgrounds. We all have different stuff in our subconscious. And when you start playing with that and when you start seeing things more as a game, you're not in this place of, oh my gosh, I must have this pressure over here. It has to come this way, or, putting in like the stress around it. Instead, you're seeing it more creatively. You're going, okay, well, this isn't the result that I wanted. How do we play with it? What might be there? What are the fears that I maybe have? Maybe what's some of the underlying things we can play with? And it doesn't mean that you have to heal all this stuff before you receive. You receive along the way. I always say God meets you where you're at. Like the moment you open up and you decide that you're ready, miracles start flowing in. It's just working on the opening up and allowing for better and better and better to come. So that was a nice long-winded explanation.
I was like, I can't stop this flow. She is so in it. It was amazing. Thank you for sharing that whole thing. I got such a sense of who you are and your background and why you excel at this kind of work. I can absolutely see how miracles happen when people work with you to sort of fix their money mindset and manifest the money that they really want and deserve, right?
Yes,
And one
absolutely.
thing that you had mentioned that I want to dive deeper into
Mhm.
is what happens when we're not seeing the manifestations, like when we realize, okay, there's work to be done somewhere.
Mhm.
Just can you give us one or two general starting points on where we might start to unravel or things that we can be on the lookout for?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is don't beat yourself up. I tell people this every single day. Beating yourself up is getting you nowhere. It's looking at it, take a moment, feel the emotions for sure. It's okay to feel disappointment. And part of it's learning that it's safe to feel disappointment and recognizing that sometimes the disappointment is coming. So, like the miracle that blows your mind can come in as well. And so it's like, okay, I'm disappointed in this moment, but looking at it from, I call it, so I always frame it as like a godlike perspective. It's that universal, peaceful, looking over in a neutral mindset. So when you're not as emotional over it, take a minute and I tell people play with it. Go do something fun, go do something to take care of yourself, watch a funny video, whatever you need to do to get into a neutral energy and mindset or as much as you can. And then look over it and go, okay, this is interesting. This isn't the outcome I wanted. And kind of analyze it and look at it. Now I'm very, very aware. And like I said, I've been doing this a long time. It takes me no time to see this for other people and for myself. But what you do is you just kind of like glance at it and you go, okay, if I was watching two teams play against each other, that I didn't really care about the outcome. I loved and cared about both sides. I'd be happy either way. If I can look at it with that level of energy and kind of look over it and go, okay, this occurred here and this occurred here. Like, what was my mindset? What were some things maybe going on? And where am I at right now? For me, this is a story I regularly tell now. Me 10 years ago was not in a space, even though I wanted the level of what I'm doing now and like the in higher levels that I'm heading towards, I was not in a space for that. I had so much learning and growing to do. I didn't totally recognize it at the time. There were so many moments I pull angel cards and oracle cards and things like that. And I can't even tell you how many times I would pull this card another year and I would want to collapse on the ground going, what do you mean another year? But what I wasn't totally grasping like earlier into that was it didn't mean keep suffering in the shit over here for another year. It just means that this is coming, but it's not here yet. And I was not in a place 10 years ago. I was barely able to speak on my spirituality. It was such a sacred place for me. I would actually choke up and tear up when I tried speaking on it. And so to be able to speak this openly, that was not going to be happening anytime soon. Not to mention I had to gain a lot of resilience. I was still healing people pleasing. Like I said, I didn't realize I'd cut myself off from love. Some of these things that I wasn't totally aware of, at that time frame really needed the growth for me to get here now. Now, what I started working on was actually like just sitting in the energy of better. One, I always ask for divine guidance. I was in a lot of toxic work environments for a long time. I did contract work like all around Florida, and I would deal with some psycho situations. And there was a night that I was driving home, it was a full moon, and I was like, God, I was like, I cannot handle this anymore. What is the lesson here? And that's always a great thing to ask. If you feel like you're at the end of the rope, just ask whatever word feels comfortable to you. I know some people like God is a challenging word. Universe, loving entity, goddess divine, whatever works for you, just go, okay, what is the lesson? And literally what happened was I received the lesson. Part of the lesson was I had decided that I was worthy of being treated better and that I am a peer and not a child. That was part of the lesson. Literally within 24 hours, not even, I received an email that they'd hired another dietitian for that account and I was going to be moving on. I was going to train her and then I got an even better opportunity. All I had to do was ask for the lesson and be open to accepting the lesson and open for better. And that kind of started me getting into better, going, okay, this is not, I'm upset. You're obviously upset and not happy because you're not receiving some feeling that you want, or something's not going the way that you would like for it to, or something's just not in the vibration that you think is like where you should be. So go, okay, well, maybe what I ultimately want is all the way over here. And I'm on the way to that, but it doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean I have to suffer on the way. So, how can I get in the vibration of just asking for better? And you don't always have to know what that better is. I've literally sat in like an almost hopeless space with just a little bit of faith going, God, I can't anymore. What is the next? I know I'm being shoved out of this. I'm being pushed to the brink. So I'll ask for help or be ready for the next. What is it? And now I also allow for it to be easier. I ask for it to be so much. I'm like, okay, can we not have the drama? I'll listen way faster, like whatever it is. But I open up and I just sit in what would make this situation better. And some of the things years ago, again, being treated with respect was one of the things that was going to make it better. Cleaner work environments. I know you're not supposed to say it this way, but like I have contamination OCD. Working in gross healthcare environments was not mentally healthy for me. That was another better that I worked on receiving, was spaces that felt clean. They didn't feel as contaminated or as like old and dingy and dirty, because it mentally that was not healthy for me. Other people, no problem. It's not that they were actually dirty. It's just my brain and how my brain processed it. That was another thing that I allowed for better income. I allowed myself to receive more and more with ease. I allowed myself to receive contracts where people were beyond appreciative of me because I was excellent at what I was doing. And I just kept allowing for that better to grow until, and I will say this, especially if they're an entrepreneur listening, I have audios on this in my membership, on all of this stuff in the Wealth Collective, my membership. But if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to jump from where you're at, and if you're pretty miserable where you're at to where you really want to go, there is typically like a disconnect of believability there. And so one of the things to look at is going, okay, and this is actually, I literally lived this example. I was like, all right, God, I've manifested so much better in this realm. I I'll take a career I enjoy right now. I love working one-on-one with people. I wanted a different aspect. There's things I enjoy about being a dietitian, and it was assisting people one-on-one, but in a clinical field where I was doing charting compliance dominantly. You're just sitting and charting most of your day. So that's not this interaction where I'm really supporting people and helping people. And I was like, I'll just if I can just in the next year have something that I enjoy more. I know I've manifested all this better, which is like building up my believability. All these other manifestations build up that believability to know that I got to receive that better. And the next thing I knew, I had this unbelievable opportunity to basically work with this company. I had my own business, still have that business technically. I still have lovely nutrition clients that learn manifesting from me as well because we love each other and I don't want to part from them. But basically, this amazing business where it's partnered through a company that did the marketing, they did all the heavy load lifting. They sent me clients. I was booked out almost immediately, and then that made it super easy to bridge the gap to like, well, that was easy. Of course I can have the next and rebuild this business again. I put it on hold when I was going through a divorce and my dad was sick and all this fun stuff. And so it was like all of a sudden, like I said, people were manifesting me, or these clients that were coming in that way actually really needed me for all the money manifestation stuff. And it just suddenly surged, and it's like, but I allowed for that bridge. And I also was very honest with myself over, okay, I can see where this is too big of a jump for my nervous system and my brain. It's way too big of a jump. So what can we do along the way? What's just the better? What's the better that'll help me get to the next? So I could keep going for hours. That's I could
Man,
keep on that one forever.
that that perspective of recognizing the disconnect and just aiming for better, that's a
Mhm.
huge shift. I want to make
Mhm.
sure everyone who's listening like heard that and it lands. Go back and re-listen to this episode because you're going to hear all of the different pieces. It's one of the things I love about having such a robust teaching on a podcast is that as you listen to it the first time, you're going to get what you're, if you're here at this level, you're going
Yes.
to hear the things that are meant for you here. And the next time you come, if you've done some work and you're going to hear Kaycee talk about a whole different set of things that,
Yes.
you know, but
Yes.
yeah, I mean, there's so much to dive into. If people are interested in learning more and becoming part of your community and the membership, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So two of the easiest places to find me, one is on Instagram. It's just my name at Kaycee Mullaney. There's a fun pink background behind me. That's how you know it's me. I also have a free Facebook group called Your Limitless Life. I do videos in there at times. There's a lot of great free resources in there. And then, yes, I have my membership, the Wealth Collective. It's incredible. I teach on everything from the beginner's guide to attracting limitless wealth onto like energetics of debt, on energetics of savings. I have loads of manifesting tips, and everything's in digestible audios as well. There's a Q&A aspect with it, where we're going to be starting some Zoom calls soon to like have even more of a community. But you have audios on my audios and videos technically on my website, and then there's a Telegram group where it's really community based, and the audios are there too, so you can pick and choose what flows better. Some people love the Telegram for the community, but they really like the structure of seeing the audios on the website. Other people love like the fun flow and being able to respond to the audios in the moment as they're listening to them in the Telegram group. And like I said, it comes with Q&A as well. If you've enjoyed this, like my audios are amazing. And my voice messages, I do voice messages with one-on-one clients. Those like, I have clients that have saved messages for years and go back, same reason, go back to them, and it just puts them in a whole other vibration and a whole other level of receiving. I receive testimonies almost every day. Like this morning, I had two amazing ones come through, and I was like, yes, I love you guys so much. People like manifesting, going from one of my clients within weeks of us working together, she quadrupled her income, was able to go start living in the Newberry in Boston because that was like this new contract she received. She then like decided intuitively, like when the contract was over, that that was the right step. she ended up with not only a contract in Puerto Rico for the winter, but then they actually decided they wanted to hire her on full time, gave her another raise on top of it. She has opportunities for bonuses now, is now moving, all this fun stuff to where she really wants to be. And it's just incredible. And then I had another client this morning have a similar thing. She had a job that she was actually like wanting to go more in the direction of come in. Not only did she end up having a raise with that, but her old position is actually ending. They're closing the place where she's working. And if she stays on through like the end of March, they're giving her a significant bonus for, oh, that my other client, the other one, is also getting an extra $6,000 bonus on top of all the fun things. This client's getting a bonus for staying until the end, but already had the next available. And that was just this morning. So like when you really open up, and I tell people all the time, if you get into the vibration, a big thing for me, what really helped me was getting into vibrations of people that knew this stuff and knew where they were going and were at higher levels. And I have done so much. I really can. There hasn't been a person yet that I haven't been able to like intuitively dive in with. And I understand all the nuances and the blocks and the things so much. And I want us to have really great, wealthy people in this world. Good-hearted, wealthy people do really good things. And the more of those I can help provide the world with, I will be thrilled.
Oh my God, you're speaking my language. This is such a fun topic. Thank you for being here, Kaycee, and diving
Absolutely.
into it. I feel like we need to have you back and do like a part two or something. I don't know. I feel like
There
there's so
is so
much
many
wisdom.
things. Yo,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Anytime. I speak on this always. Like the more people, like truly, it's one of the things that I love about doing speaking engagements and podcasts. I manifest speaking engagements all the time because the more people that can understand this, again, you get take less pressure off yourself. You see it from a non-biased perspective, and then it's easy to shift into receiving more. I want you having so much more. I'm tired of seeing the struggle around us. You all deserve more. You get to receive more, and it gets to be easy. And yeah, the more I can help, the better.
And so it is. And
Yeah.
so it is. Amazing. Yes, listeners, please, please, please go follow Kaycee. Go join her Facebook group. Get in the community. It is such a good resource. And reach out. Just introduce yourself. Let her know that you heard about her here on the
Yes,
Grow Like a Mother
please.
podcast.
Mhm.
Get in touch and take those first steps.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Um, so I guess this is where we end. I just want to keep talking, but I feel
I
like this is,
know, I know. I'm like, I was the same deal. This is how my audios always are. I'm like, you have to cut yourself off.
yes.
You need to keep it focused. Yeah.
The
But
worst, but never fear. We will have Kaycee back. We will have
yeah.
Kaycee back. And
Do
until
it.
next week, everybody, keep on growing like a mother.